You're listening to the Faeries and Folklore podcast by Ronel. I'm dark fantasy author Ronel Janse van Vuuren. With over a decade of digging around in dusty folklore books, researching creatures of imagination that ignited my curiosity, I'm here to share the folklore in a nutshell and how I reimagine it for my writing in an origin of the Fae. This is the Faeries and Folklore podcast. Hi, I'm your host Ronel Janse van Vuuren. You can just call me Ronel. In today's episode, we're continuing our exploration of the Fae realm. This episode is brought to you by my Irascible Immortals book series. They've been alive forever. They've been bored for some time. And now they're showing it. Go to ronelthemythmaker.com/my-books/the Irascible Immortals series to learn more. The hosting of this podcast is paid for by my book sales, but you can sponsor my time in creating this podcast by buying me a coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/Ronel to support me. This can be a recurring or once-off deal. You can always buy the podcast as audiobooks to help with the hosting. Go to payep.com/Ronel Janse van Vuuren/collection/Faeries and Folklore podcast audiobooks to support me. We're continuing our exploration of the Immortals. Today's Immortal, Mab, Folklore in a Nutshell by Ronel. From English folklore and early literature, Mab is either the queen of the Faeries, the wife of Oberon, the fairy king, or as Shakespeare said in Romeo and Juliet, the fairy queen of dreams. Michael Drayton had her as the wife of Oberon and queen of the Minotaur Fae in Nymphaea in 1627. Even Milton had her as a pixie-like fairy. In some beliefs, she's connected to the Scandinavian nightmare creature Mara, who, too, can infiltrate dreams, though Mab is usually benign in nature. She is usually seen as a tiny mischievous fairy who acts much like a will-o'-the-wisp when leading humans through bogs, called Mab-led, in Warwickshire since 1849, tangling hair, especially that of horses, which could mean she'd gone for a midnight ride on it. Sometimes she's charged with swapping human children with changelings, though it isn't clear why she would. Some believe her to be the fairy version of a queen from a very early Irish race, Niamh, though it doesn't fit that Shakespeare knew this, as Irish folklore wasn't much known in the 16th century by the rest of Britain. Most early writers had her connected to dreams, though, and kept her as the queen of the Fae, despite Titania taking that role in Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. And now for my interpretation of the Fae, in an origin of the Fae, Mab. Mab is the queen of dreams, nightmares, and creatures that go bump in the night. These minor Fae flock to her for protection, as they'd rather be under her rule than be solitary Fae open to the whims of the courts. Her second in command is Mara, a creature known to create nightmares throughout folklore. Mab is connected to the land, the air, and darkness, being able to use the magic within it all to create dreams for mortals and Fae alike. She's a powerful fairy who can stand up to the Dark King, Dagda, and other powerful Fae, while ruling over her domain, dreams. Her seat of power is Dublin. She can change size at will. She's usually a tiny fairy who can ride in a carriage drawn by bumblebees. She has wings, though she can hide them. Depending on her mood, she appears as a gothic creature with dark hair and eyes, or a light creature with iridescent wings, eyes, and pale blonde hair. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of the Faeries and Folklore podcast, and that you've learned something new about fairy. Remember that you can get a transcript of this episode in the description. If you're new to the podcast, why not go and grab your free copy of Unseen, the second book in the fairy tale series, on my website, ronelthemythmaker.com. Loads of folklore, magic, and danger await. Take care. Subscribe for books and folklore.